Hello, my name is Adrian Gilbert and I am the co-author with Robert Bauval of the Orion Mystery. One night, while camping in the desert, he looked at the night sky. Standing out among the splendor of the heavens was one constellation in particular, Orion. While looking at Orion's belt, he made a critical observation. The arrangement of the alignment of the stars seemed to mirror the placement of the three great pyramids of Giza. He had developed a thesis concerning the pyramids and Orion, which he called the Orion correlation theory. I was amazed at these discoveries, which I felt the world should know about. Accordingly, we agreed to write a book together. The result of this collaboration was the Orion Mystery. Our book became a #1 bestseller in the UK. It was also translated into some 25 to 30 other languages. It became the most important book on the pyramids for 100 years or more. However, the story has not ended. It continues today. And now we're going to go beyond Orion. Well, hello again, my friends, and well, you've already been welcomed into the Invisible College, and you know very well who I am, so I'm not going to repeat myself there. This is going to be a rather different lecture from the ones that I think you're used to. At the moment, I've got no intention of releasing this lecture to the general public. This is going to be for the college only, and there's good reason for that. We're going to get into the real esoteric now. We've been talking about esoteric things for a while in general, but now we're going to be a bit more focused. And I think that because of the way we're going to go, I gave you the analogy of climbing a mountain before, in at least one of my earlier lectures, that if you're going to climb a mountain, you want to find someone who's already been up there before. You don't just sort of turn up in Switzerland or Himalayas and say, right, I'm going to climb a mountain now. You need to find someone who can show you the way, at least part of the way. And maybe you're going to, exceed that person in due course. But initially, you want to find someone who can teach you at least something about what mountaineering is and help you learn. I mean, if I was going to go climbing, I'd like to start out perhaps with someone like Bear Grylls, to show me the ropes, show me what to do. I've no intention of doing that, but if I wanted to do that, I would be wanting to meet someone like that could show me the way. So now we're going to start our journey. So I think it's important that you learn a little bit more about me and who it is that you're going to be trusting to take you on this journey, or at least whatever part of it you wish to travel on. I could be anyone. I mean, not many of you have met me, I think. So I think I owe it to you to tell you a bit more about myself, to reveal a bit more, because you're probably wondering, who the hell is him? Where did he get all this knowledge from? Now, if you have watched the program about the Orion Mystery or you've read the book, you could be forgiven for thinking that, I'm just a sort of scribe, a sort of backroom boy that doesn't really count. But that's actually not the truth. When I met Robert Bauval, he had another project in mind altogether. And I looked at his material, which he sort of skipped through this Orion stuff. And I said, I think there's a book there that that people need to see, and I think it would be very successful. So we talked about that, we discussed it, and for him that was kind of old material that he had already passed, that he was into other things. And I said, no, come back to this, because this is important. Now, there is a reason I said that, and that's because I myself have been involved with Orion for many, many years before that. I'm going to take you back to my school days initially. Let me just get the slides up and running here. Because that's where it really all began. Now then, now when I was at school, I had a physics and maths teacher called Father Bernard LeGroux, and he's a very gifted man, very, very intelligent. I went to a public school, a Catholic public school, and he was a priest. Now, had he not been a priest, he would undoubtedly have been one of Britain's top astronomers, scientists, working probably at Jodrell Bank or somewhere. But because he was a priest and he had a vocation, he was teaching schoolboys physics and mathematics. But he was a very good teacher and very intelligent. Now, he used to take us out into the playing fields and with a telescope to have a look at the stars. And I remember him showing us the constellation of Orion, and there you can see it with the stars named there. And because of that, I got hold of a book, and this is the actual book that I got at age 14. It's called Guide to Stars, and this was published back in the 50s, actually, this book. I think it's 57 it says here. I got this must have been 63, and it had all sorts of star charts in it, and a lot of information about the stars and different constellations. And I studied this book in detail, and I made a list of the names of the stars of Orion. You can actually see Orion there on the cover. And I learnt all those names off by heart. Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, Alnitak, Alnilam, Mintaka, Siphon, Rigel, which are the 7 brightest stars. What I call Betelgeuse, I think a lot of people call it Beetlejuice. And people tell me off actually, because I don't think it should be pronounced Beetlejuice. That doesn't sound right at all. But anyway, whatever you call it, whether it's Betelgeuse or Beetlejuice, it's that big red one in the shoulder of Orion. If you think he's looking down at us, it's his right shoulder. So I learned all the names of the stars off about Orion. But Orion was going to occur more in my life after that. Now, Father LeGroux set us a puzzle. If you were living in a civilization long ago and you wanted to send a message to the future, to future generations, how would you do it? They don't speak your language. They don't know anything about you and your culture. And maybe you want to send them a warning. How would you do it? And again, we all scratched our heads and we puzzled a few days. And eventually he came back and he said, right, well, the way you would do it is you do it through the universal languages of astronomy and mathematics. So he said, by using the universal language of mathematics and astronomy. Now, it was only much later I realized that what he was talking about was this, the pyramids. And the pyramids are the most geometric things on Earth, really, in terms of buildings. And they're huge. And at the time we were talking, nobody had any idea about if they were somehow connected with astronomy. That wasn't something that was talked about. Now, I pondered about these subjects and I wondered greatly about it. And 3 major events happened in my life prior to when I met Robert Bauval, actually quite a long time prior, which kind of set me on my course, as it were. first of these I've talked about before. I was on a beach and I had this extraordinary experience of the oneness of everything. You could call it cosmic consciousness, how everything in the universe, this planet, the sand, the sea, myself, everything, all part of this one huge being. And that was an overwhelming experience. And that set me off really on my quest to find out what that was all about. It was not something that I'd been prepared for at all. I had a religious upbringing, but it didn't prepare me for that in the slightest. And that took me on many journeys, actually. And one of these journeys, I decided with a friend of mine we were going to cycle to Israel. I've told you about this before as well. And we were going to go to Bethlehem for Christmas. But on the way, we stopped off in Greece. And we took a boat ship from the heel of Italy across to Greece, and we spent some time there. And while I was there, I met a lady, a very nice lady actually. Quite, we let's say we hit it off, shall we? And she told me how her father had a special technique for past life regression, and she begged me to come and meet him, as she was sure it would help me on my path. So I don't know if you've ever done any past life regression, but this was something that, again, we're talking about 1972, I think, yeah, or 71. No, I think 72. And people didn't really know very much about this whole past life regression thing. It wasn't something that was in the general discourse, you could call it, not like it would be today. But I was curious. I wanted to know, I'd love to know my past life. So the following year, in 1973, I flew to Oregon and stayed with the family for several weeks. And her father led me on a regression, but the result was quite different from expected. Instead of going to a past life, I had a series of visions, and one of these concerned the pyramids. Now, I had a whole series of visions in this, and actually I could play it back over and over again. It was like in Star Wars, that little computer, R2-D2. You press the right button and out pops Princess Leia. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And you could play that over and over again. Well, it's like this was recorded, and I think it's something I brought into life with me. And I've discovered that instead of going back into a nice past life, which I was expecting, I went straight off the planet, and I was out in the stars. And I discovered that I'd come from a star system called Xeon. I hadn't a clue where Xeon was. It was only much, much later that I realized where Xeon is. But anyway, that I'd come to Earth. That's not saying I hadn't been here before. If you read Edgar Cayce, he'll tell you that in between lifetimes, he believes in past lives, you could have sojourns in different places, even different star systems. So maybe it's something like that. So I'm not boasting here, but I'd come to Earth from this other star system. And I was shown various images also to do with the end of the age, which were quite scary, I have to tell you. Here I am, I'm looking for the way, I'm looking for the truth, I'm looking for how to develop and transform, and suddenly I'm seeing images like something out of the book of Revelation. Quite scary. But one of the images I saw was this one, which was the Pyramid of Giza, and it had three symbols on the top of it, symbols for the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And I was told by a voice in my head that the three religions would find reconciliation through the pyramid. Now, of course, I didn't understand that at all. I didn't know anything about pyramids. But this is what I was told. So I thought, well, that's curious. That's interesting. I better get something about pyramids. So I went and bought this book, which had only just come out actually at the time, Secrets of the Great Pyramid by Peter Tompkins. And I was in America still. By that time I'd left Oregon. I'd been to California, and then I'd hitchhiked from there all the way to Chicago and up to Wisconsin. And I was staying in a small town there called Racine, and I had a bookshop there. And my friends and I, we got a copy of this book. This isn't the actual copy that we got there. I actually bought this one when I got back home. Fascinating book. Highly recommend it. And that set me off learning about pyramids. So that was all well and good. Then I had other adventures, and I got involved in a certain society, and I will tell you maybe more about that another time. But I left that. It was a very traumatic experience for me. But right towards the end of that, I had another experience, which was really extraordinary. Really extraordinary. Now, I don't know how to put this to you, but I used to go around the art gallery in London, the National Gallery, and I would use it to do, I suppose you would call it a sort of tarot reading. You could walk around, you can try this yourself sometime actually, and just see what is drawing you. As you walk around an art gallery, just see what imagery is drawing you at that given time. And you'll find maybe some particular picture pulls you through it. And you go and look at that picture, and then you understand, oh yeah, all right, there's this detail here. What's that about? Well, I was being drawn to symbols of angels, and I was starting to see angels all over the place in London, you know, on the tops of churches, on the outside Buckingham Palace, big Victoria symbol, the symbol of victory, and other things. And it came to me that you're going to meet an angel. Well, I had met an angel before. I haven't actually seen it, but I had experienced its presence before, so that wasn't so surprising. But I was anticipating meeting this angel, and I prepared myself for it, mentally and physically, as best I could. And then one night, I was in my room, I was meditating, and I felt this presence come into the room. And it was kind of really overwhelming. And I felt quite faint, so I went and lay down on my bed. And as I carried on, becoming weaker, and I felt my breathing stop and my heart stopped. And I thought, oh my God, you know, this is it, I'm going to die. So I surrendered to that. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a great silver eagle. And it was rather like this. This is my friend Aquila. I bought him in South Africa some years ago. And you imagine an eagle, something like this actually, in silver light, standing at the side of your bed. And you imagine that eye looking at you, unflinchingly looking at you. And I was held by this eye. And as I was held by it, so I was drawn into it. And at the same time, I had this extraordinary Kundalini experience in my body. I'll tell you more about that another time. I don't want to digress. And I was taken out of my body, and I was taken up the tube of light. Now, you've probably seen stories or heard stories about people who have near-death experiences. This was not a near-death experience. I wasn't dying. This was an initiation, which is something quite different. Although those can be sort of initiations in themselves. And I was taken to this place filled with eyes, which scrutinized me. And I had nowhere to hide. You know, it was like I was invisible. You know, they could see right everything in me. There was no hiding anything. They knew everything about me. And then I agreed to do something, which I think I said yes, which was to coming back here to do this work. And then I was taken to another part of heaven, which I saw it's like a great banquet. And I felt unclean, unworthy to be there because the energies, the spirituality was so strong, the feelings of love and highness. Yeah, it's a bit like feeling like a tramp who's turned up at a banquet in Buckingham Palace or something, and there he is in his rags, and there's the Queen there with all the courtiers, and they're having this sumptuous banquet, a very high level event. And I felt rather like that I had no right to be there. And anyway, that I was shown that, and then I came back down to earth, and that was a wrench because it was a place of such love and joy that I was leaving. Although I didn't feel worthy to be there, it was still wonderful to be there. And then I found back in my room, and there was this lump of meat, and I had to go back into it. But for 10 days or so, I was completely different in my consciousness. And it was like the eagle was still working through me, and it was controlling my lower nature. The eagle represents, in a sense, the higher level of being. And it has power over the lower level. And so the lower level wasn't able to rebel. The dragon, we each have within us a dragon, was controlled by the eagle. I'll come to that a bit more shortly. But anyway, this was an overwhelming experience. And that took place in 1977. Anyway, so the pyramid, getting back to the pyramid, of course, the pyramid with the symbols on top of it is very much like the Great Seal of America. And actually, in later lecture, I'm going to show you exactly what that means. You're probably thinking, oh, I'm a Freemasonry. I'm not a Freemason. But by the way, I'm wearing this black shirt. It's not because I'm either a priest or a black magician. It's because I saw a deal in Marks and Spencer's last year for three of these black shirts at a very good price. And I love a good deal, so I bought 3 shirts. That's the only reason. It's not symbolic of anything, and it's not a club shirt or anything like that. I just wanted to clear that little point up. But the symbol of the Great Seal of America is to do with the sun and the pyramid, and I'll come to that in a later lecture. But you see also on the obverse of the seal of the United States, you've got this eagle, the bald-headed eagle, and he's holding in one hand, he's holding arrows, and the other hand an olive branch. So that's a bit like the whip and the crook, which are held by the pharaoh in ancient Egypt. The whip or the carrot, the to punishment or reward being offered. This is sort of kind of how America behaves, I guess. And you've got the 13 states, and you've got a pluribus unum, out of many one. So where does this come from? Why an eagle? I've just told you about my eagle. But why is the eagle involved with the United States? Well, if you look here, it goes all the way back to ancient Rome. The Roman imperial eagle. You find that all over the place in Roman monuments. And you've got the eagle with its wings outstretched, holding a thunderbolt, and there's surrounded in this one by a laurel wreath, and that symbolizes victory. And then you've got SPQR, Senatus Populus Quo Romanus, Senate and Roman people. And this was kind of, they like to pretend that the people still mattered. or even that the Senate still mattered. Actually, by this time, it was an imperium and it was a dictatorship. But the fiction was carried on that the emperor was really just one of many. He's like the chairman of the board, like Chairman Mao, Chairman Mao, yes, okay, but he's actually the dictator. Or Xi Jinping now is actually the dictator of China, but he pretends to be just one among the many, as it were. So the Romans did the same kind of thing, and they like to pretend, because they got rid of their kings long before, and they didn't like to admit that they'd gone back to having a king. Anyway, so where did all that come from? Well, the Roman god, the high god in Rome, was Jupiter. You've probably heard of Jupiter. The name comes from Jove, or Jove Pater, Jove the father. The J is pronounced like a Y in Latin. So Jove Pater, or Jove the father. And that's very similar to the Hebrew name of God, which is an unpronounceable tetragrammaton, which is spelt Yod-He-Vav-He, Jeve, we would say. So that would be Yave. So Yov and Yave clearly come from the same tradition, ultimately. In the Roman mythology, mankind was created by Jove, Jove. That's why he's Jove the father. It's not just that he's the father of the gods in the Roman mythology, he's the father of mankind. And it's the same in the Jewish Christian tradition. God the Father is the father of mankind, and he is Jehovah, Jove. Now, when you look on the statues of Jove, he's often accompanied by the eagle. He's also holding a little statue of victory there. And the eagle is the messenger of Jove, of Jehovah. The eagle carries the Logos. He carries the word of God, the commands of God, God the Father, carried to earth by the eagle. And also the eagle then brings back news to Jove of what's going on. So the eagle is a very important symbol in not just classical Roman mythology, but also in other places. And in the Bible, we read, I think it's in Ezekiel, and I'm not absolutely sure of that. It might be one of the other prophets of around that period. But there's a story about how God is decided that he's going to punish Jews, he's going to punish Jerusalem because they broke their covenant, their agreement with the Babylonians. They told the Babylonians they will pay so much, they will not make trouble, they'll be good boys. And they're allies, basically, but they've accepted that, yeah, this is the status quo, and they're not going to burn our city down, and in return for that, we'll make this covenant. But then they went back on the deal and decided they'd team up with Egypt to see if they could defeat the Babylonians, and of course they couldn't. The Babylonians came back, they sacked Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and took the treasures away, and took away the people, including people like Daniel and Ezekiel, back to Babylon. And then you have the wailing by the rivers of Babylon and all of that, and eventually they are going to return. Well, in that story, the king of Jerusalem, his sons are slain before him by the Babylonians, and then his eyes are put out, and he's taken off to Babylon, where they kill him as well, after they paraded him. So that is a cutting off of seemingly the house of David, the royal house of Israel, of Judah, I should say, cut off. And yet God had earlier made a promise to the Jews that never would they lack a man to sit on the throne of David. So seemingly God's going back on his promise. Well, he talks in symbolism about this great eagle, the eagle of Babylon and the eagle of Egypt. And he said, I myself will come and take a twig of the topmost tree, the cedar of, and I will plant it on the hill of Israel, which was elsewhere. We'll explain all that in a later lecture. But God uses this eagle symbolism in that book to talk about enacting his commands. He uses these different nations, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, to do what he wants in the Bible. It sounds very strange, but that's kind of how it's worded. So we can have a sense that the eagle is both the messenger and the carrier of God's will, the Logos, taking it to earth. That's one of its meanings and symbols. Now, the Roman legionaries used to carry eagles into battle. They each had a standard which had an eagle on the top, and it was very important for the Romans not to lose the standard. They would go to great lengths to protect it, and if they did lose one in battle, they would do their utmost to get it back. It didn't matter what it cost. They would fight wars. They would, pay maybe some tribute, whatever it took to get it back, because that really mattered to them, because it symbolized their working underneath the guidance of the eagle. Might sound strange because they weren't very nice people most of the time, but anyway, they certainly were aware of the importance of Jove and the eagle and how they had to obey and do what they're told. Now, the first of the Roman emperors was Augustus. You've heard of Julius Caesar, and he might have become the first emperor, except he was assassinated. And then there was a second civil war. There'd been one before with Caesar and Pompey, and now there was one between the conspirators, Mark Antony and Brutus. Brutus and the conspirators, Mark Antony and Augustus, on the other side. And Augustus and Antony defeated the conspirators. And then there was another war with Augustus against Mark Antony. And eventually Augustus, who was called Octavius first, before his name was changed to Augustus, he defeated Antony, and Antony committed suicide alongside Cleopatra. And Augustus took over Egypt, and he became the new pharaoh of Egypt. And in Egypt, he would have been treated as the incarnation of another of my friends here, Horus. Horus is the Egyptian equivalent of the eagle. He's a hawk, and he hovers in the sky and he sees what's going on. There's many other meanings and connections with Horus, but one of the conceptions that the Egyptians had was that the hawk would come and sit on the pharaoh and guide him. We see that there's a statue of Khafra. Statue of Khafra in the Cairo Museum is a 4th dynasty pharaoh, supposedly the builder of the central pyramid at Giza. And he has the hawk sitting on his shoulders with his wings round him, round his head. And the idea is that he becomes the mouthpiece of the hawk. So the pharaohs certainly believed that they were guided, and when one pharaoh died, the hawk would get off that perch and go on the next one. And then that pharaoh, his soul, they would do all their ritual incantations, mummification, all the rest of it, the Orion mysteries, hopefully to get the pharaoh's soul to ascend and go to Orion. We covered all that in the Orion Mystery if you read the book, and I think I've talked about this before as well. So Augustus brought a lot of this back with him, I think, and the whole eagle thing became much more prominent. But it carried on. The Romans eventually, they became Christianized at the time of Constantine the Great, around 325 AD. I think the he converted himself to Christianity, I think about 313 or something like that, 14. He eventually converted the whole empire to Christianity around 325 and made that the state religion. And in Christian churches today, you will see eagle lecterns like this. Now, what that is you have an eagle, usually made of brass, sometimes of wood, and he's standing on a globe. The globe represents the earth, and the eagle represents the carrier of the Bible. And the Bible is the Word of God, the Logos. So the eagle is the symbol of the carrier of the Logos, bringing the Word of God to the people. So they put the Bible on the back of an eagle, and the priest or preacher, or whoever it is, will stand there at the lectern and he will read from the book. And he will say, this is the Word of God. So this is actually shows how this tradition has come into the church following the time of Constantine. Now, of course, we have another bird that we meet with a lot in Christianity, and that is the dove. And we see that here with the baptism of Jesus. And this is his initiation. This is actually the beginning of his ministry, that he allows himself to be baptized by John the Baptist. He doesn't, need it really, but what happens at the baptism is the dove, symbolic of the Holy Spirit, descends upon him. And the voice in heaven says, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. Now what that symbolizes is, again, Jesus unites his own will. He submits to the will of God. He becomes the vessel for the Godhead to work through him. This is the whole nature of what this Holy Trinity is all about. The Son is the incarnation of the Logos. The Father is the sender of the Logos, and the Logos is carried by the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. Now, this is actually at a higher level than the eagle, I believe. We're talking about this gift of love and peace and kindness. He's come from a very high level of creation to send this message. Higher than the Logos, the eagle, which is really connected more with this solar system that we live in. So, about initiation, do you remember a film called A Man Called Horse? Richard Harris. Probably younger people here. It's a long time ago this movie was made, but it was quite a traumatic thing. This white man in America, early America, gets captured by the Indians, and at first they treat him almost like an animal. He has to walk around on all fours like a horse. But he kind of endears himself to them, and eventually they put him through an initiation ceremony where they put pieces of bone through the muscles in his chest and attach eagle claws to them and ropes, and they haul him up so he's hanging by his chest. As you can see in the picture here, he's dangling there for 24 hours or whatever it was, I can't remember now. Nothing to eat, nothing to drink. He has to just suffer that. And at the end of that, he's now an initiate, unable to be with the young men, treated as a true warrior. So that's why they call him A Man Called Horse. Well, that is his initiation, which kind of indicates that something of this, I don't know if this is based on a true story or a true tradition of the Native Americans, but this is, it shows that something in this, somebody knows something. And here we see another eagle symbol, the flag of Mexico, which is eagle's victory over the serpent. You can see an eagle there has got hold of a serpent and it's grabbed it. It's got it 1 foot round, it's got it in its beak. And you'll actually find the same symbolism, and I couldn't find an image of this, but in Mesopotamian mythology, the fight between the eagle and the serpent is something that's been found on the clay tablets that talking about part of their religion and symbolism. So we find it in Mesopotamia. There's this connection in Egypt, because of course you have the Hawk of Horus, and he also fights the serpent, the apex serpent, and you've got it here in Mexico. And actually, eagles do fight serpents. They capture serpents and take them away. They carry them up into the air. And that was my experience when I was taken up into the air. And again, we have this caduceus symbol of Mercury, and it shows the the serpents going up the rod. That's Kundalini, and you've got eagle wings at the top of the caduceus, and Mercury has his flying boots and his flying helmet, his cap of invisibility. It means he's traveling in spirit. He's not traveling physically, he's traveling in spirit. And that is actually a symbol of initiation. So when you see that, somebody knows something. So I was taken out of my body by the eagle in 1977, and I commissioned a painting of it. Actually, I've got it over here. I'll show it to you. And this is the real thing. Painting, quite large, which was done by my Swedish friend Bengt Alfredsson back in 1977. I had the experience. Actually, the painting is in 78. I had the experience in 77. So it's going back a bit. You can see there his signature and 78. So you understand that when I met Robert Bauval and he started talking to me in 92 about Orion and the pyramids, I was well primed. I knew that this was important, and I knew it was our destiny to work together to make this happen. I won't say it was easy, but it was our destiny, and it was extraordinary the way that project, it was like surfing a wave. We both remarked on this, that it seemed like something bigger than us was carrying this whole thing forward, the Orion Mystery project. But things happened like this, just fell into our laps. And Robert was actually brilliant at manipulating and working with people like the BBC and the British Museum and Gantenbrink's team and getting all that to happen. My job was to make sure that we had a book, to bring all these ideas together, make sure it was actually written, and written in such a way that it would be easy and accessible for regular, ordinary people to read, not just an academic text full of notes. There are a lot of notes in it, but I wanted it to be something that anyone could read and enjoy and understand. We've had some criticism, from certain quarters about that. We said it's not rigorous enough. It's not in right academic tone. But we weren't writing for the 100 or so academics that might read it. We wanted it to be read by the millions. So we put it in a very different way. So I was responsible for that, and I was the backroom boy on that project. But that doesn't mean I'm always a backroom boy. And I've written lots of other books, and we've got some very important work to do now. Because although this experience happened to me, it lasted 10 days or so. Something has remained ever since. And I have a connection. And that's why I find things out that other people don't. I'm not one of those people that like on Ancient Aliens, who look at a big block of stone and say, well, how did they do that? Oh, it must have been the aliens again, Yeah, definitely the aliens. Well, I've never seen a flying saucer. I know people who claim they have, and maybe they have. I don't know. I haven't. And I suspect that if one of these little aliens, these little green men, with their sort of big heads and thin necks came and landed on this planet and walked around, they wouldn't be able to keep their head up because the gravity would be so strong. I think we're looking at something different, something more supernatural than that. And we need to be understanding in a different manner. So that's kind of where I'm taking this. And I can't promise you that if you climb this mountain with me, that you're going to experience the eagle. I can't promise that. What I can promise is that at the end of your life, yeah, you are going to go to something, either that place where I went to or something similar, where you're going to be judged for your acts in this life. And the more you're prepared for that, the more likely you are to pass that. And also, we need to be fighting the lie that this is just a material world and there's nothing else in this world or this universe that's as smart and clever as we are. That our intelligence just happened. How did it happen? Don't know. Just happened. The worms turned into the frogs, and the frogs turned into the lizards, and the lizards turned into, I don't know, the mice, and the mice grew up and turned into apes, and the apes turned into us. It doesn't happen like that. It's a lie, and we have to refute that lie and understand that when the Bible says that the seeds of life were planted on earth, that's the way it happened. That this planet has been terraformed. It's not just spontaneously evolved. It's been terraformed, which means there's a purpose behind it. And it also means that the seeds from which we come are elsewhere. And that elsewhere, I believe, is Orion. Just to finish off, I said earlier that I was told way back in 1973, when I was doing that past life regression, and I went off the planet, and I was told that I came from another star system called Xeon, and I didn't have a clue where Xeon is. I think now it's Zeta Orionis. Xeon is short for Zeta Orionis, which means it's one of the stars in Orion, and it's actually the lowest star in the belt of Orion, the one which is matched by the Great Pyramid. So I'll leave that with you. We're onto something here, and I think you're going to find this a fascinating journey. So stay with it. If you're shocked and horrified by all I've said, and you decide this is not for me, I'm leaving this college, I will have no feelings, bad feelings towards you. That's absolutely all right. It's your choice. I've forced nobody to do anything. But if you want to come on this journey, I think you'll find it fascinating, because this is just the beginning. But thank you very much for your time, and we will speak again. I'm sure of it. Take care.